This is a good story from Kathy Griffin, where she recalled trying to turn in her pedo brother Ken and slammed, Ashton and Mila for supporting Danny. I don't know if she heard the first story, but it doesn't sound like they actually had even a good start on the show. Like there was a whole thing there. That's what I was saying. It goes something happened at the beginning and then it just got normalized for Mila there. And then it just turned into a thing like, we're all used to it, he's my bro. But a whole bunch of people have been doing this. Even on the right, okay, oh my God, on the left side of the screen, it's like, Bo has no plans to divorce the guy. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. You could not get me to hang on with that. That she's not going to be with anybody for 30 years or what? I was like, I mean, at that point, I mean, that's a definite deal breaker right there. I mean, but she didn't care. They seem about the same, like really pathy type people where it's just like, we don't care about nothing. And most of them had abuse in their childhood. So I'm trying to figure out, actually, Kathy could help out a little bit too, because, well, what she's saying is she's like, I try to turn in my brother, but then, um, she said that the mom or the family there was trying to shun her out for trying to report him. And I go, yeah. So it kind of indicates like there was some enabling maybe when he was younger. Like there was something that happened. And that's what we're trying to zoom in on that. Like I know that like people that deal with that problem, have, I'm sure they have some type of criterion outline how they figure out how they, came about, but they may not be on point, and she said they don't typically care about the gender. It depends. It's weird because okay, if you're talking about these general MS like assholes, where it's just like we'll do it to anybody, and we don't consider us doing it to guys like actual rape, but we're specifically targeting females. They'll do that. Um, it's like what I've seen is like some have a preference, some don't, but even if they have a preference, they wouldn't be against doing some rapey activity with a boy. Like it's kind of like that. And then they don't all go for like little infants though. Like it's almost like there's this like magical number in their head like it's like past age 10, they're old enough, but, below that, it's probably not a good thing. It depends. It depends. Like I said, they're like all individuals, but they technically, because they seem to have that ASPD thing in the mix of it, they don't care. Like they're objects. Like they don't care about humans. So it's kind of like, who cares? Just do it, if they feel like it. And then it's like, the Josh thing was weird because I was starting to go through the video thing because I said I have to go through them before I put them back up because there was some bullshit that happened and I need to make sure like some I gotta fix some stuff and actually go through some stuff and I'll put it back up, most of them anyway. Um, and but it's gonna take me some time because there's like 700 of them. I was like, but I was listening to the one video I did like in 2015 and I was actually talking about one of Josh Duggar's friends, that guy. Oh my God. And I was kind of like, see, this is the problem because I feel that I have like common sense, but I still make mistakes, right? But like general common sense, like the guy, like you wouldn't take this guy seriously. And then it was like the following year, then it's like all these people, like the majority of America totally took that guy seriously. Because he was like friends with the Josh Duggar's family. And when I was going through all this stuff, and I threw a picture of Josh Duggar in the clip, and I was like, why did I do that? I had to go look back because I guess like when they were doing the, I don't know, right wing watch was talking about the other guy, that Swanson dude, who I think is also a child predator. Oh my God. His comment, no, he's like, what did he do? Like they have homeschool and he's like, I don't even have to get dressed for the day. I just get up in my pajamas and just, I don't know, something disgusting. Like that's the total guy that you could see just like, uh-uh. And somehow when I was reading something, they were suspecting, and I don't know if it's even true, but I was looking at it and I was like, I don't know, I wouldn't be surprised. Like one of his family members is married into the Duggars, or they did have a connection, like they were family friends or some sort of thing. And I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that it was that circle up until the documentary and they were talking about these people. And then I was like, oh, yeah, yeah. And then they had some convention type thing. And I'm thinking that's where Josh Duggar was at. And I took a picture. I used a picture from it, from some media thing. And back then I didn't even link anything. So I'm sitting there going, oh, that's really weird. I didn't even know I did that. It was just like this random picture of Josh. And it was right when they came out. I guess they had just come out with the story because I was like, oh, when was that Megyn Kelly interview? And it was like in 2015, in like May, June something or something. And my video was like in November. So I was like, oh, I must have caught wind of it because I remember the interview. And then I probably kind of knew who he was there, but I just threw him in the clip for some weird thing because of a convention. He was already doing stuff right there. And he was getting outed. And I went back to the Megyn Kelly interview, and Megan's weird. I was like in it because the way she's acting, asking questions, it's like, do you feel like you were molested? I was like, what kind of question is that? I mean, do you feel like you were molested? It's like if you would have asked me about that early thing that I talked about with that other boy thing, like, no, I didn't feel I was molested because you might go in this thing about it. It's like, but what does that feel like? I was like, um, and I just didn't bring it up for a long time because it was so random of how they did that. And they knew what they were doing. Like the thing about it is they were so calculated as a little kid. They're calculated. It's not ignorance because at that age, because they were I'm reaching for the number. It was like 9, maybe somewhere around there. They they knew what they were doing because they got in trouble and they were like, we're just gonna ignore my parents type of thing, right? And then they were doing this thing and I was like, I don't even know what the hell's going on. And there's nothing for me to report to anybody because I don't even know what just happened, right? It's kind of like that. And yeah, and then in the addition, the abuses, so I'm talking about the spanking thing. Okay, that's one. That can cause sexual behaviors. If you think about it, it's just like I don't even want to get into it on here because I'm already like taboo enough talking about even just some additionals in that, but not that I have a problem talking about it. It's just that the I think the only people that are gonna hear this are people that would totally or maybe already know about it or are educated enough to figure that out, but like the other people know. I was like, no. So anyway, her brother was caught molesting children from her, I guess, or found out about it, and it was a boy and a girl. And then he abused like some girlfriends. Yeah, it's like they have no like they don't necessarily just go for kids. That was a thing when early on I was like, it seems like they have no preference. Like they just don't care. Like they just have no line because they're ASPD. They don't care about the laws, so it's kind of like whatever I want to do, I'm gonna do. It's not like an ignorance thing at all because Josh knows the laws, right? So they told him the laws. So um, he still went F it to the wind and then did it. And so what he's doing, he's calculated, he's plotting, he's like waiting till people are asleep. He's doing things illegally on the internet and then hiding it. And then in those photos, they were like little kids or something like that they were trying to say. They didn't get very specific, but they were like, oh my God, like this whole thing. And I was like, yeah, that would be an indicator though, on top of it. Like it's probably the addition, like besides he might have a development problem, that somebody did something to him as a little boy, as a little boy, like really little, because that's not the typical age that they start doing that stuff too. Because it's like I said, it's almost like they have this imaginary number of where they think, okay, that's just too young, and they're all out here sitting there trying to act like they're not rapists, and they're like, he's not a pedo, by the way, guys, even still. And I'm like, don't even try that. But that's how they talk because they're trying to go by the I guess it's called clinical definition of like, prepubescent. Like they're trying to do that to like totally okay all this. And then but anyway, yeah, it was either he got touched, but even it could just be from the action of their physical violence on him, of touching him, and then it got sexualized. It could be that, or he touched a little baby, like that's the thing, like they're only talking about a certain portion of it, and I go, yeah, but he was already that way before he turned a teen. So you're missing a part of the story. Like I was talking on these other stories, I go, they're talking about something that happened at 14. I go, no, that's already the time that it shows. Even as young as 12, they were pulling that up in the 87 thing, in the 87, it was a 1987 FBI, what is it? It was a reference, the research on arsonists, because arsonists are really similar to like a serial killer. Like they both have ASPD mostly. Like they were trying to classify this. They're like, yeah, most of them have antisocial personality disorder. As some call psychopath. I'm like, no, some call them sociopath, probably more properly. And but either whatever, you know what I mean? We're all talking the same thing. And then or they said BPD, and I was like, I don't think somebody with BPD would do that. I think somebody with BPD might do that if they hadn't the addition of ASPD and they just didn't get caught with their ASPD. Because it's totally criminal. Like, it's really specific. Like, they're totally criminal. They're all angry and they want to, like, feel powerful. And so they'll go light something on fire. And then, like, if it kills people, it's totally great. Like, they don't care. It's like a random event where you could consider them serial killers. They just don't have a specific target. And not all serial killers have a specific target. Because if you look at Israel Keys, he did not have a specific target other than, I'm looking for victims. I'm looking for the random person that I can go and do these crimes to. Like, was there a specific target? I mean, he did definitely lean onto the female portion of things, but he would kill anybody. And so both those things are so connected because it's out of the same personality disorder. They're not all these, killer type people, but that's like the extent of it. So I was looking at that and I go, you guys should be scared if you start seeing a lot of females doing that, because the abuses on boys and girls are a little different. It kind of varies. So you would naturally see more men being violent where they're telling them don't have emotions, and then they're like, they don't develop properly, right? The proper emotions. And then they like do the addition of like feeding in violence to them to be violent and enabling that. Like there's so much in it. I was like, yeah, there's a total difference in the messaging. But we're seeing what I'm seeing right now that's like alarming to me is because people are being more gender neutral, right? And that's not the bad part. The bad part is that the way that they're now verbally treating kids, like I don't know if it's a thing where it's like because of that there's that more potential now to where a female could do it too, because just different. I don't know. There's something about it, and I'm noticing this uptick, or at least it looks like it, with females doing more violent crimes, and you don't want to see that because then you could start seeing it'll tip into they'll start doing mass shootings like just as often, and then we're just screwed. I mean, really, like the whole thing is you want to kind of reverse this. So nobody's doing this stuff. But because more people are abusing their kids and more people are treating our gender differently today, that's not the bad thing. The bad thing is like just the addition of that abuse in it, because I'm like, I don't know. That's my thinking about it. And so then they had this female running around doing lighting fires. I was like, dude, you don't even want to see that. There's a it's mostly white men that do that, and so but she looked a little bit, I don't know, a little bit on the masculine side, so I was kind of curious. Like I'm trying to pick this out because it's not that common that you would see that, and it's so weird because some guy literally got busted for the same thing. And they could have rode their bike and went to another area. I mean, for all you know. Yeah, for like 72 hours they were lighting like 14 fires or something. I was like that. They were saying like most of that. I don't even know if it's true because they haven't done I didn't see an updated research on it. It was just like in the 80s. I'm like, well, if you did this in the 80s, right at the time where you guys like created the mass shooters, then you weren't catching it like what you should have caught on it because you did the research. This is what pisses me off so bad, and this is why I was like mocking that dinner thing, because they keep saying they're like, yeah, we have dinner with our kids, like somehow that would make them like not killers or something. I don't know, dude. They're on this trip about having dinner together, and I'm just like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. It wouldn't matter if you had dinner with your kids or not. Mm. And that's what they were saying in 85 actually, when they were all out raping everybody. So in the 87 research, or the data that they had on this, so they knew about antisocial personality disorder. Okay, so they knew about it. They knew how it was created. They knew that those things would tail off into them doing crimes, right? Just general crimes. So they can go start fires, they could go blow up a place, they could just do things where they're shooting animals all over the place. They could be um, committing petty theft. They could be just general rapists, serial killers, dropouts that just, some more petty type of stuff. Or they could be rich and then, doing things like Kevin Spacey and getting away with it. And, like you'll see these different dynamics. That's what I'm saying. I don't think we should be using the term psychopath though anymore. I thought they dropped it though, and it doesn't look like they did. Just because there could be autism in the mix of some of these people, and I was like, I don't want to be calling somebody with autism a fucking psychopath unless they have the traits of one in addition, which that is happening. But when I was thinking about it when I was going through these other things where they said they were clinically diagnosed as a psychopath and they were talking, I was like, there's no part of them that even would fit any of that. So I was thinking like maybe they're just generally autistic. Because one of the problems that they had, or at least one was talking about, was that they have no connection. They don't feel like a certain connection to everybody. I'm like, okay, yeah, but that alone wouldn't be I mean, it would be my concern if they had some other things with it. But it was sort of like, they're like, yeah, no, I have my kids. I love my kids, but everything's very, like dialed down, right? Their emotions. And I was like, so I was kind of like thinking about it and I was going back. I was like, but you're not a danger. You have to have those things in it. You have to be like criminal and you're a harm to self and others and all these other things. And not at all. It just sounded like a normal person other than maybe it is autism, because I was reading another thing and again, it was a similar thing where they're like, oh, I got diagnosed with BPD, but technically they just found out I have autism. Now you could have both, but maybe it was a thing where they thought like when they were talking about masking, that's why I said, I go, the masking actually matters, like why they're masking. Not necessarily that they're masking, but why they're masking. Because usually when the person with ASPD mask, it's because they're being criminal. They're trying to manipulate, okay? Versus I have no self esteem and I want to try to fit in with the crowd. Like they're not trying to technically manipulate the crowd. They're trying to get like they want to fit in. Like they just want to fit in. There's no criminal intent there. It's kind of a different thing. So I was trying to be like, yeah, that's a different thing. I wouldn't even be concerned about you. I might think that you're fake, but I probably could tell that you're just insecure. You know what I mean? It's more out of an insecurity than it is, I'm trying to mask so I can do some manipulative thing to, get a new, your job or try to commit a crime or it's always something like that, which is like the differentiating thing there. Like I'll mask my emotion, like if I'm upset, like, it doesn't make you a sociopath. So like that's a different thing. Now there's people saying that they mask and they actually technically had no emotion there at all. I remember even as a kid, like it was hard. Like I was like, oh, are we supposed to be sad here? Cause like, because you're learning, you know what I mean? You're going through this thing before you would actually, really feel like what everybody else is feeling. But it was kind of weird because I was like, everybody else is, crying. Am I supposed to cry? Like, when you're a kid, you can kind of refer back to some of those weird oddball things. But if I grew up and I'm an adult and I'm still going around like that, mm, it would depend. Like it could just be that, and it's not a thing where I'm like lacking any empathy for the situation, but I just may lack certain, other things to it. I don't know. There's a lot of questions with it, but I wouldn't be concerned about somebody like that. I would be concerned about somebody that's sitting there like inside, like, I don't know, like some other thing. Um, but there's a lot to learn because nobody talks about it. It's like all shame and like there's a lot of people that have family members who are pedophiles and all that stuff and they take it like, oh, we should like well, I'll judge them in the sense of how they raised them. But like technically like they're not the ones that did the crime, but I'm going to question the parents' behaviors as to why that came out and there is an answer for it. And so like we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of it cuz they never talked about it. That was like the worst thing to ever bring up, anybody being a pedophile, and yet they're all pedophiles, right? Like it makes no sense. It's like, oh, we have all these laws where we can go rape all these kids and shit, and it's like, dude, what the hell is going on here? So yeah, no, but on the '70s show, no, definitely, they were not good. They were being shit fucks on there. When they were talking about that early story, yeah, it would mean that they were always like that. They were always doing these shenanigans, probably, and she's probably just putting up with it, like we all did. Um, you know, then you tend to do the shenanigans back. And I remember doing shenanigans. I didn't do anything about betting, about sticking my tongue down no damn kid's throat though. That's a different thing. That shit right there. I still think it's pretty bad that we were doing the depancing stuff, but that was extraordinarily common and it's really effed up. But it was done by men and it's just women reenacting their bullshit. Oh yeah, I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna find some 50-year-old guy. I'm gonna go jump up and go pull his pants down. It's like, man, you can go through these stories now from all these people that were like these mega addicts and shit, like from the 80s and stuff, like the St. Elmo's fire, the fucking 16 cat, all that stuff. And when you go through it, then you could tell like all their parents were all shitty. Like you go through this thing and now it like makes sense. It's really weird because it's one of those things like back in the day, there's like, yeah, these, you know, bad kids and their drug habits and all this shit. And then you go back into the history of it and their parents were total shit. Just like the Andy Griffith thing. I was like, dude, who looks at that and goes, that's a wonderful dad? That was the crazy thing about it. It was an accidental story I ran across because I wouldn't care about fucking Andy Griffith. It's like a billion years ago. It's like my dad's like crap over there. And no, I was like, what the? I go, yep, it's just coming together now. Now we're getting it. And I was like, okay, this is not good. And they need to be educated and to stop because otherwise we're gonna have we're gonna have worse stuff than that. We're gonna have worse stuff than that if they keep up with that damn shit right there. Because these men keep talking in that way, and I was like, no wonder they're not without emotion, but their emotions are out of whack. Like they're very violent. They don't have the right emotions for things that they should. They have no empathy for those things, and then they will come out and they want to fight everybody. Just because they're really set in their ways, and um they would never connect properly with anybody being like that. So how could you bond with the kid being like that? You couldn't. So that's why a lot of those kids, I think, when they were getting adopted and things like that, we're talking about all that. There's no. So first of all, they lack actually being their real parents, so they don't have that bond. But they don't do anything to nurture that. It's like, I don't have any empathy, so we're not going to nurture it. They didn't nurture anything. Like, they just wanted a family to, like, it's really effed up. Like, I don't, how did they not know that? Like, again, they had the research. So who are they thinking is the abusers? Are they said maybe they were so stupid back then because they were stupid, but maybe they're reading the research and thinking, oh, this must be a bunch of atheist satanic homes because that's what they were doing in the 80s. Like I can't wrap my head around it because I'm like, you had that research, you knew what was causing it. You knew that the parent structure of even in the Israel case, right? They literally wrote it out. So that's what 2010, whenever they got that whole thing together. So it said right there, it was like this weird religious family, and then they're like shunning him and then kick him out and that whole thing. So they had it. So it's kind of like, okay, you have that information. So isn't that the thing you target like right away? Because that's like a danger to us all. It wasn't the only case of it. It was like they kept saying, okay, the serial killers have these traits, but those traits everybody else has, okay? So one of them they were saying was wetting the bed. And I'm like, there's a lot of kids that wet the bed. It could be from abuse, yes. Or it could be from a different issue, medical issue. But I will tell you, probably about 99.9% of people that wet the bed do not turn into a serial killer. So then, yeah, there was like two other additions. What was it? That, okay, killing animals. They don't need to kill animals. They don't all kill animals. But some kids have done things like that before they learned to treat animals properly, and they didn't turn into serial killers. So it's not technically necessarily a indicator unless the enjoyment of doing that, such as the animal thing when you read the Israel thing, doing that kind of crap, where it sounded like there was no parental thing here, so then nobody's there to stop it. And then it turned into this other thing, though there was a kid that witnessed it. And then what happened there? Like the kid didn't tell on him, and then to get him treatment, or you know what I mean? Like something about it to correct that whole thing versus being like, I'm different. I'm actually enjoying this. It's like, yeah, at that point you need to be taken into a treatment center. So, yeah, you could stop it there, or at least hinder the future thing about it. But generally kids sometimes will hurt animals without like, and not all serial killers cut people up and do those things. Some do things like strangulations. They wouldn't need to test on animals. Like there's certain ones, like there's no like really good indicator on that technically. If you saw what Israel was doing, yeah, but Not necessarily. They may not be doing that. And then the other thing, what was the other one? Is what do you the animal thing, and then I don't know if it's lighting fires. There's a lot of them that lit fires. It doesn't mean they're going to turn into a serial killer, but it could be an indicator that they would, but not necessarily. But they're being criminal, so they'll just have like the general classic scope of ASPD, maybe. Like I said, there's like a spectrum, but I don't know if they're viewing it like that. I was like, there's totally a spectrum. It's just like from people like me, and maybe there's people that are less problematic than me. Like, no, but I mean, like, I think there's a spectrum of is like, here's the human level of like, you could do a few pathy things and you're like a normal human, because you're not a perfect human, because nobody is. But then it starts going creeping up into, oh, this person's a problem, and they're more of a danger. Like, I don't feel that I'm a danger to myself or others, but then you start getting into that category, right? Danger to self and others. And it's not like they're far away from us. It's like when we're talking about stuff, it's like, oh, here's that portion there, because then they just start tossing away people like garbage, and like they'll start doing these certain things, and then it starts kind of going up the scale, and then in that scale of things varies quite a bit because everybody has different other things along with it sometimes, or most of the time. And then they start acting out in different ways, and then there's these different types in the spectrum, and then you go to that far end spectrum where they're just like mass serial killers, and that kind of shit. They're off bombing the place and whatnot. So it's kind of like that's the seemingly far extreme, like pathy tendencies. Yeah, like it would be that cusp between that and the other, and then you start going down it would be like me and everybody else that's not like running around raping people, right? But we might do something where it's like where you're not thinking one day, and then you do something that would be considered something that those people do all the time. So it's kind of like there's that level. That's how I view it. That's how I kind of been viewing it. And then it seemingly seemed that the psychopath version that they were talking about was a separate thing, and then it was something they were born with. But technically, when you look at this, it's like you're kind of born in a way where it's like you don't like have any concept of good and bad, and you're depending on the environment, but you're kind of like doing crazy stuff, and you have to be kind of corrected and nurtured. And then if the nurturing's not there, how are you supposed to get empathy for other people? If you're being beat to death, like, you don't. That's why they come out like that. So then they were like talk about psychopathy as being born with, like, there's a something wrong with their brain, and I'm sitting there going, is that autism? Are they talking about autism? I'm wondering if they're talking about autism, and they're so confused. Those terms came out before they were really hitting on that. Now, I just don't feel comfortable saying it anymore. Just because it's, I don't know if they're just saying that. Because then and this is the other thing they said. They're like, not all psychopaths are dangerous. And I'm kind of like, well, then they probably are not psychopaths. I agreed with I shouldn't say agreed with it. It was like I'm going along with the information that people were throwing out. And it's like the more I think about it, it's like, well, no, then I probably wouldn't consider them that, because mostly when you're looking at the actual definition, like they do hit on this long list of things. And maybe not all of them together. It could be like, 9 out of 10, could be 8 out of 10, and then it starts going down the spectrum is what I'm talking about. But it wouldn't make any sense to say somebody's a psychopath and they don't do anything wrong. Like, then they don't have a problem. Maybe the problem is just autism. And then they just have some other developmental issues, right? That's what I was thinking. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, I would need, there's so many different definition, like how people, their perspective of it, and from different countries and at different time periods in history. So it's like I'm going off of like a bunch of different things of that. And I go, no, I think we should just stick with that. They're just sociopaths on a scale, and then some go to the end and they're pretty damn bad. And they would be considered psychopaths. Like the what they would have termed, that. Because when they were saying, they're like, oh yeah, you could tell this one guy because he was more calculated and the other guy's more impulsive. I'm like, they're both of those things. Like the socio could be both those things, and the more calculated one seemed to be higher IQ. That's probably what you're seeing. Because they're not as dumb. Like, they're not going to do street level crimes typically. Like, they might, but they're kind of like, I get to deal with, millions of dollars in this fucking company, so I'm gonna like sit there and plot out to take it all. Why not? Like that's kind of where they would go with it. Versus like, why would he go rob a freaking bank? I mean, he could rob a bank, but like, why would he go do a street level crime when his lifestyle is in mid or upper class? Then they would do more mid upper class crimes, and those crimes would technically probably consist of a little bit more calculation there. And those people tend to have graduated school and went to college, and so they're just brighter people, and they'll think their things out, but they'll still be impulsive because you see them do DUI. It doesn't stop them from doing a DUI. It doesn't stop them from doing rape crimes or anything else. And those are, a lot of those are impulsive crimes too. So, you know what I mean? So it's kind of, I don't know. I don't think, me personally, I just don't think they have it really packed down properly. And they tend to change these terms over time. Like they're like, we hate the word sociopath, but we're going to use antisocial personality disorder. And it's like, I really hate that term, actually. I just don't think it. And like I said, everybody's an individual, and some may just not get a thrill off of doing certain things versus doing something else. And that's the thing, they do these things to get kind of a high off it. Like they need to do extreme things in order to like not be, I'm bored, that shit right there. So they'll do just like these really extreme things. And they are a danger to themselves doing those things, but they're not always illegal things. But it might be but there might be something like, I'm gonna go jump on the top of a car while it's moving because I'm gonna get a high thrill out of doing that. And then they get like, this one guy actually, it's not funny, but then he got like knocked off the truck and then he died. You know what I mean? Like they do things like that. I'm gonna go hang off a building with my fingers. I'm like, holy crap. Just the thought of it makes me just, no. But they need to do that. Like they it's not like they can't stop themselves from doing it, but they want to do it because they get this kind of high off of doing it. Something dangerous, like they have to do something extraordinarily dangerous. Say, I don't think anything else, but I just thought it was interesting. Kathy should probably talk more about that story and how her parents were being when they grew up, so we could prevent it. Like now it's like, besides like getting them arrested, it's like prevention, because holy crap, like you can't fix it after a point. So it's like, what were the things in your family dynamic? Like you want to get into that thing. That's why I'm like, okay, yeah, at this point we could sit there and say, oh yeah, let's arrest them all after it's like too late. It's like, how do we like stop creating them? Because here it's pretty obvious that the parents wanted to cover it up and they wanted to shun her for trying to turn him in. Like, don't you go after our family. This bullshit. Only girl with these two assholes. You know what I mean? This is what happened with Mila. It's just her, and Danny always looks like a dick. Like every picture of him, he's just like, man. I just do not. There's nothing likable about that guy. He looks like the guy you just want to stay away from. Malachi. I don't know, dude. just like I hate him so much I don't even want to talk about him. Like there's some socios on here I'll talk about because they're like I don't find them to be like they're kind of dangerous, but they're not like Gene Simmons. Okay, he's like a annoyance to me. Like I don't hate the guy, but he's like a major annoyance, and so he's like he's constantly he's just an annoyance. So he's more funny. I mean, he's not fun. He's funny and he's not funny. Like it's that level of like you say the dumbest shit, and then his narcissism from his ASPD is like way high, and then he like may go for some kids and stuff, and he's been in trouble for like sexual harassment and all that stuff. But outside that, I don't think he's like killed anybody. But he lacks like empathy for women and anybody else actually, because when they were bringing up income stuff like people of color left behind and women and everything else, and he's just like that's just how it is, we don't all get a fair start and like this shit, but then he gets called out and he'll be like I'm not really trying to hurt anybody's feelings, like that's him. So he's just like classified as an annoyance, and you'll hear me kind of shoot off crap, but I don't, the word hate isn't there in that one, so I could talk about him, like it's not unlike this guy here where it's like, I actually do hate him. I was like, I actually do hate him, and I don't even want to talk about him because he's that typical, he reminds me of those piece of shit footballer guys that are just like, I don't even know if he was in football. Like, it'd be funny if I could look back at Danny's past. He's like, he was the football star in high school. I was like, yeah, I could see it because he's a dick. Like, I was like, the whole thing about him. Like, this personality type. There's like a type with him, and I don't even want to give him a breath, It's just there's nothing to learn off him so much because we're talking about all these other people that are like, they might pass you by because they're a little bit more charismatic. I don't find this guy to be charismatic at all. I find him to be a total jerk. Like, the actual jerk type that when you meet him, you're just like, he's a fucking dick. Keep him away from me. Like, that type of guy. Versus, like, somebody who comes in and he's like, hey, everybody. I'm like, that shit. Because those are the ones that tend to, like, I don't know. Those are the ones that can really pull some shit on people. They make some great points. Nobody should ever protect an abuser. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know who raised these people, but I, okay, my parents obviously protected abusers because when they did this bullshit, they didn't report these people, and then, they didn't do anything to my brother. The cops protected, helped them out. Like, I was looking at this whole thing, and us females just to have no agency, and so they need to protect the golden sons. Okay, remember MS has the golden son, like they're supposed to be procreating the white males to be leaders and control the universe, and then they want to rid of everybody else basically, and women are only good for being a baby machine to pop out the golden sons. That really is the thing on the MS thing, yeah. And then people of color are not, they don't like them, so yeah, so then they tried to kill them off obviously and use them as objects. Like, you're good as a servant, outside that, toss them. But MS itself, like, even with them, it's treat women like shit, and us males are the dominant. So what will happen is they just unite with all the males. It wouldn't matter who, and then they all, harm everybody else, and they'll still be pedo rapists and whatnot, whatnot, whatnot. I like how everybody hates Kathy Griffin. She didn't even do anything. She thought by talking dirty she was funny. She was disgusting, actually. Men talk dirty all the time, so are you saying you're disgusting too? So, what is NYP? Wait, obsession with this person. She had her 15 minutes, right? She's been around for a long time, you guys. This woman is making herself out to be some kind of hero. What a joke. I bet she wouldn't tell the story if it didn't make her look good. Not that anything can. She spent many tens of thousands of dollars trying. How does it make her look good? Like, that's actually a story where people are like, I'm not even going to bring it up that my brother's a pedo. My other friend's brother was a pedo and she still protects him. Like, she tried, I don't know if she'd say protected. It's more like it went into, his wife was also part of it or something. And she might be. Like, I wouldn't even dismiss that, but I recall as a kid that they did something. That's why I was like, oh yeah. And it was, I think it was a tickling thing, yeah. And we didn't know to report that, and nor would they have done anything. It's like this guy tickled me when I was a little kid, and he's an adult, and he wouldn't stop, and then it, like touched my chest, like doing it or something. It was something like that. It was some oddball thing that happened where I vaguely remember it, but I remember being creeped out by it, but there was no like discussion about that, and it wasn't like your typical like somebody just touched you, you know? It was like doing an action to be able to do another action. Mask, manipulating, a kind of a thing like that, but wait, I don't know how I feel about people coming out with accusations when the other person is dead. We don't care that they're dead. What does it matter if they're dead? And unable to defend themselves at all. What are they going to say? Here's my thing with all that. They're always going to say they didn't do it. So hear him from the grave. I'm innocent. There you go. He's going to be doing that. And we all know I'm a liar. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so it's just, it seems like a low thing to do. They can't hurt anyone anymore. Yeah, but they left victims, okay? So they're still hurting people. So, and they didn't get in trouble for it. So, okay, so outside of making yourself look good or getting attention, I feel that way when Mackenzie Phillip, oh great, wait, Mackenzie Phillip came out with the accusations against her father after he dies. Oh, wait a minute. Go work through it in therapy. Don't go public with this claiming it's therapeutic. And that's why everybody's a rapist, because you guys told everybody to stay silent. Don't go public, so nobody knows that the whole public is a rapist. Yep. That's what happened. That's exactly what happened. Everybody was a rapist the whole time, and they had your mindset. And so, yeah, like I was talking about all my stuff. At least I talked about it before people died. And then during, like I'm telling everybody, right? And all of a sudden he dies, and all of a sudden there's this like silence, like this weird, I don't know, it seemed really weird for like a year, and I didn't even know that they died. So I'm going on because I'm, thinking, are we gonna file a lawsuit right now? Are we gonna, what's my options here? Yada yada, and I'm still trashing the shit out of those people. Nobody once mentioned it to me, and then all these people died, like these other people died. And I was going through this thing. I'm like, I'm gonna quit smoking because holy crap, like I was going through this whole other, thing, and then I get told that my boss got murdered, and this other guy died, and then oh, evil grandma died, and it was like all these people at once died. My pets were dying. I don't know. It was like everything. And then I didn't even know about this other thing yet. And then all of a sudden, one day, I go read something, and I go, they died? And then it was all the year prior. And I'm like, huh? And then I find out the craziest thing about it. I find out it was like literally the night that Blabbermouth posts this bullshit, right? And then in the comments I go, karma, but it wasn't about dying or anything. It was because and they weren't dead yet, or they had just died and they didn't know. Like, it was a weird thing. They go, oh yeah, Alice is missing some shit. And I go, yeah, that son of a bitch probably stole it. Because he's like, collects all their stuff, right? I was like, yeah, he probably stole it or something else. And then I just threw out the word karma, right? And then I just didn't even check anything on them for that whole time. That's how much I try not to pay attention to those people, unless the media throws it in my face. But I no, and so I leave it there, and I'm thinking, oh, and then the next day it said something like, oh, then they found the items, and I was like, yeah, whatever, he probably stole them, it was like that, and I was just like, yeah, whatever. And then, like, for a long time, like, this stuff, and this happens all the time. Like, I'll be like, I can even be fans with somebody for a long time, and then, like, I got a life over here, right? And I'm not paying attention to stuff, and all of a sudden, like, I read something, some horrible thing or something, and I'm like, what? But it was totally like that. It was like a year later, all this horrible stuff, and then I find that out, and then somebody tells me, like, the actual story, or at least a portion of the story of what happened. And I'm like, what the hell? That's fucking weird. And then I go, nobody investigated it. Like, what's going on with that? Like, there's a lot of questions in it, because I was saying that prior to it happening, I said that person was off kilter and making comments, and they were mentally ill, like a thing about it, right? And everybody was ignoring it, brushing it off, and everything. And it's not my job to care if my perp is off kilter, because obviously all of them are, right? But I was giving the addition of telling people, yes, there's something wrong with them. They didn't care that he was a child predator. They were totally fine with that. And then the addition is they were off kilter, and then it was pretty obvious and blatantly obvious, just from a song that they did. And you know what I mean? Like, there was a whole thing. And then I hear that, and I'm like, psh, I don't know if our stuff had an addition to it. Maybe. I mean, it's kind of one of those things. But that's not for me to give a shit about, right? No, that's for their boss. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, let's remove myself from the story for a second. If I knew somebody was working with somebody and then they did that kind of crap, I would literally want to know what the hell is going on over there. And like I said, there was some inner thing going on, because they were trying to not work with them anymore at a point. And I don't know from why to where. It was like literally how many years later. Yeah, so they started that up in 97, where they didn't want to work with them anymore. There was some blowout. And then they die like 10 years later. I don't know, something like that. Yeah. So why would it make me look bad because I still talk about it? You know what I mean? I'm the victim of it, so I'm allowed to talk about that. And if you feel sickening towards victims for it, you might be a sociopath. You should be upset with the father for touching their kid. Like, how disgusting is that? That was actually a really horrific story with that Mackenzie thing. That was disturbing as hell. That was like the first time I heard that really going on, and I couldn't even comprehend it. And then obviously now today we hear like a tank of parents do that. And I'm like, okay, that's shit right there. That's the ignorance level of everyone, the public. It's actually extraordinarily common, and I could vomit. Just stay silent and let the public be ignorant. Let these men get away with everything. Women have no agency. We don't care how they feel. We disregard women's feelings. And men are not supposed to have any, and we disregard them too, and the men are the ones that go out and shoot up the place. Yeah, I mean, it's that. Okay, so they go, why do all these celebrities have to tell a story about their own personal situation and insert themselves into a story they aren't part of? Was she a victim of Danny? These people have opinions on stories that no one knows the truth except for Danny. No, we know the truth about Danny. He got 30 years. And the 2 to 3 women that said they were raped. I don't believe him, and I don't believe these women, because I'm sure they are all lying. Okay. And truth is somewhere in the middle. Oh, that sounds like a pedophile. That sounds like a pedophile. And they go by the name D's Nuts. That they talk like that too, because they're, yeah, they start trying to blame. I'm sure they are all lying. You're sure? Why are you sure of that? They literally convince somebody to get 30 years. That's really hard to do with these guys. I'm just saying it really is. And it was a very convincing thing. Kathy is feasting on the pain of rape survivors for attention. This is the same woman who made jokes about pediatric cancer. Never forget that. I don't know what she said about that. How is she feasting on the pain of rape survivors? Talking about how she tried to get her pedophile brother busted and that those two are ridiculous. Okay, she is an empathetic person for sharing this. It helps victims to know they are not alone. She also makes an excellent point. An ethical person would not have done would Kunis. Okay, yeah, they wouldn't have done what Kunis and Kutcher did. Yes, thank you. Shame on Mila and Ashton for the others who tried to interfere with the judicial system and interfere with justice. He was drugging and violently raping women. Shame on Mila and Ashton. They had to go to the hospital, did they? Violent in what way? Oh, somebody had to ask, violent in what way? Rape is violent, Haley. Haley, is this a woman? A violent? Okay, so the fact that people don't think rape in itself is violent, rape is a hate crime. So mostly when it's like somebody catching their prey and then pouncing on them. That's a violent crime. Somebody named Blaze who goes, the very act of being penetrated by another person's body part unwillingly in and of itself is pure violence. Yeah, it's a hate crime. Mindset of the perp isn't sex, which they do keep going in on the sex. The only time I've said that, maybe there was an exception is like if you get some like mentally disabled person that's like, I don't know, like that actually could go into a whole other category. But generally speaking, yeah, it's a ASPD action. Whatever's going on with the story, Kathy is a mental case in her own right. She didn't even say anything bad. You might be right, CLU. Bill Cosby got out of prison. Yeah, let me tell you, prior to him even getting arrested, the DA's office in Yolo County was sitting there saying he's never going to get busted. So when you have the government talking like this in the background, it's quite suspicious, right? They go and they were just kind of mocking it. And then he gets arrested and I was like, oh, I was mocking them back. And then all of a sudden they let him out. And I go, yeah, that shit's shady as hell. Because I go, how are you saying that at the beginning? And then that occurs, right? And it says, I fully expect Matterson to get out too because wealthy and connected generally win. And all the other wealthy and connected people who are minimizing what he did are assisting in getting him out of prison and rehabilitating his image, like Army Hammer. Oh, God, yeah. I touched on him too. I never liked Kathy Griffin, but I believe what she is saying about her brother. Yeah, they're just being. Remember how Hollywood stood up and supported Roman Polanski? They're so vile, these people. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of stories I didn't really even know about growing up. Like, you could have been like Woody Allen, and I always thought he was gross, just generally. He looks like a little weasel that molests everybody anyway. And so then, like a lot of that stuff happened before, like, I don't know what year that happened, but it happened, like, I just didn't know all the stories. I didn't even know the Roman story, like, for a while. And then I was so out of the loop because I just didn't pay attention to celebrity stuff unless it was rock music. Like, the thing that I was paying attention to was what was going on now, like you would for any brand, right? Like, what is the music right now? What is this band doing? What is that band doing? What do I like? What am I going to create? Like, I was literally living like that. My brain was like OCD on that. I wasn't sitting around going, What's the celebrity gossip for today? And then I have to go work on sets with these people. And I'm just saying how shitty they are half the time. And then it was refreshing to see certain ones really nice, right? And I've said Norm Macdonald, he might have talked a lot of shit, but actually, like, out of the people, when you meet him in person, like, he was a nice guy. I mean, he obviously didn't hate me, so I mean, he may have been shitty to somebody else. He may have all these things, but I'm just talking about like my personal experience. But if like an allegation came up, right? I'm not gonna go run and defend him because I'm like, he was nice to me that one day on fucking set. You know what I mean? That's only because I think he thought I had a crush on him. I was like, he was like, I think I made him nervous. It's like you don't want to sit there and go, dude. Like even when I was talking about the story, I felt kind of like an asshole because it was like, I was like, I didn't want him to think that I had a crush on him because the guy was trying to make it seem like I did and purposely, like some bullshit you would do in junior high, like she likes you. And I'm sitting there going, no, I like him in the thing that he does, but I didn't want to date him. And then if the guy would have asked me, I would have felt obligated to, you know what I mean? And then I would have been like, all right, like, I don't know. We would have had fun gambling together. Maybe, and then he has a problem and I'd be a bad influence. Okay, so here we go on this thing. He's like, well, I'm gonna cry and I hope okay, so then I went home. He's like, yeah, the ladies like me. I know, it's so funny though. I was just like, I guess just let it be. It's like, no, I don't really like you like that, Norm. It just seems like an asshole thing to do, like, because somebody already set you up, like, making them think that. I was like, I was so shy then, man. And to just even do that was like, I want to go home now. Luckily, he wasn't this major predator because that could have ended up some other way. I was just thinking about all these things because the way that people were doing shit back then. No, it's just this stupid fucking ASPD guy. It's like, I'm going to be funny. Hey, Norm, she's a really big fan of yours. I make jokes with kids with cancer, but I've made bad jokes. That's part of being a comedian. Sometimes your jokes really suck. I don't know if she made that joke. I don't know what they're talking about, so I can't even comment. That's why we don't do stand up, because I was like, I can't even imagine. Like, okay, already I'm already hated. I think something is wrong with her. She's acting out lately. It's strange. Oh, we got a gaslighter here. Root beer queen. Nice way to gaslight somebody. Like, I don't know. It's almost like there's always one gaslighter now in the comment section. The word that they're using is this whole other one. You guys are all wrong. It's like we got this one. It's like, are they chronic gaslighters? Do they like purposely do this? Like they have to gaslight everybody. Like wherever group they go into, like they're like they gotta say something, like Kutcher here, where he's like, I don't really believe in alcoholism. It's like, what the fuck? I still cannot get over that. You know what? That would be a Scientologist thing, maybe, because when they used to send me their stuff, like, I wish they still did, because I like to go through it anyway, just to go, oh, where are they at? I'm like, where are they at? What's the bullshit you're trying to peddle out for today? Like, the medication things, like, the natural, whatever. And their anti-addiction thing, but I don't know, would they say that? Like, alcoholism isn't really a real thing. Maybe it's like, okay, and then it would go, it's just in your head. I don't know. But they prey on addicts. That's a thing. And that's how Christy Alley, I think, got involved in that. I think. Because she had like a coke habit or something. And like I was saying, in 92, they were outside, like, handing out pamphlets or doing some bullshit for people that were addicts to go into their thing. And I never heard of them in my life. I'm like, who's Scientologist? Is that science? Is that a science thing? I'm totally down. No, I didn't have a drug problem, so it was kind of like, well, I don't know what they are. What are they? And everybody's like, they're bad, they're evil. But they were saying that about everybody. So it's like one of those things where you're just like, I have no idea till later. I didn't have a specific problem with them except for that they were lying to me, and I was just saying like what they did worked, and then they just kept mailing me stuff, wherever I moved to, they would mail me stuff, and it's just like, okay, and then they gave me a book, which I still have the book with the wheel thing and everything. I was like with the wheel. Or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, but that was it. Like nobody was like, dude, you gotta come down and like fucking, because they're like, she ain't got no money, dude. We're not gonna get anything out of her. They want the celebrities because they're the cash cows. I told you they didn't even make me pay for the book. The guy's just like, I'm gonna give this to you. It was like a $35 book or something. He's like, I'm gonna give this to you, and I'm like, oh, great, because I was like, interested in their whole thing. But I did mention Tom Cruise, and I don't know. I was like, so this thing about Tom Cruise, um, I was trying to remember everything, but I did ask him about the Xenu thing, and they said that's not even real. They told me it wasn't real. They said it's just all bullshit. And it could have been all bullshit. It would be like, um, I mean, they're saying it's real, but I'm just saying, like, back in the day when they were like, oh, these Satanists, and they were all doing these sacrifices and all this stuff. And then I go meet a whole bunch of them, and, like, nothing is going on, right? It's just another group of people that are like, you really should try to be good, and stick to the white side of things. Like, there's white and black. Like, everything's white and black, right? Which is probably a stem off of, racism, too, really. Like, when you start thinking about this, black is always evil, right? The black cat, the black this. And, but you gotta be, like, on the white side because the black stuff will come back at you being evil. Like, they were even going on like that. Like, some of these people. And so, but you could take it in more if you're just coming out of Christianity or you came from that whole thing. And then it's sort of like these concepts that you've already learned. And then until you get out of that whole ideology altogether, then it's just kind of a joke. You know what I mean? Like there is no black and white anything. And nobody's like born like evil. It's like they would become evil because of the upbringing from abuses and stuff like that. But I know some of these kids that they bring on, like Dr. Phil and some of these other things, I believe like those kids were like massively abused, and the parents don't even say anything. They're like, we're model parents, even though every time she act up, we beat the shit out of her, and then she starts acting crazy, and we can't figure out why, and then she starts trying to hit us, like something like that. I don't know if Kathy's making this up, but a rumor has spread that she was considering having an OnlyFans account and performing some nude pics for her fan base audience. Please say this isn't so. That would be hilarious. Isn't she married? He's like, is he gonna do some too with her? I think it's funny that people would even have a problem with this. Like, who cares? Doing nude nothing for nobody. I don't believe, I don't think anybody deserves it. I would imagine probably though he was innocent because their dealings with him were all positive. And that is what the legal system is about. Innocent until proven guilty. Well, I'm not for any of this fucking system because it's created by male supremacists. And no, because people say that their dealings with him were all positive doesn't mean they were, because a story came out and it was not positive. And so this is their version of positive. And that's what I was saying in the Johnny Depp case, is that the people that they were asking are abusers because they were defending him. And then one ex-girlfriend, some ex in this, I went into her stuff, and every freaking son of a bitch she was around was a child rapist She was making threat. She was actually making threats. Like, she's like, if it wasn't for this, I would beat her up. Like, she's violent, right? The female. And I go, oh, yeah, yeah. So basically, the women in it are also violent. And so when you're asking them how he was, you're not looking at the character of the person they're asking. And so, yeah, they didn't care about any of that. They wanted to just go off of, oh, she said he's fine. I go, did you not see that she was like actually wanting to physically like beat up a female? So it's telling about her character and then seeing the men that she was around. So one of them is in a lawsuit right now, or I don't know if that lawsuit is over. So the one guy, raped a kid and, everybody just ignored it. And then a whole bunch of them, there was a whole bunch of guys up in here that they were hanging out with. And I go, yeah, that's the crowd that is child rapists. Because those are the people that were an extension of people that were part of our stuff. Yeah. So I was like, oh, yeah, yeah. No, that's the protective circle. So nothing that they say has any legitimate credibility because they're not healthy people generally. So those are the type of people that would be with a guy that is a classic socio because it's them. Like, they probably have the same problem, right? So and not everybody that would be with the socio has that problem, but there's a history there. So I was looking into their history, and just for study purpose, to see like why were they saying this, because we knew on the Winona thing that she was under 18, and then he was violent in that thing, but then yet they came out and then defended it and then didn't bring up those things. So they were like purposely covering it up, or it's just they shelf it differently. So it was important to kind of look at that because what they were saying was not proper, even though there was a history of it, right? Then there was a history of him beating up people, he beat up a alleged LGBTQ person because he was trying to say that he beat him up because he hit on him. That's what he was saying. And I don't believe that was the case exactly, but he did the typical thing from the outline that they did on the difference between a psychopath and a socio. And he did that same type of thing there where they were in a bar, some guy did something, and somebody acted impulsively and then just went and did that, right? So it was a story like that where it was like he was in a bar, somebody, I don't know, he's claiming made a pass. That actually may not even be the truth, okay? But he's basically saying, well, the guy was gay, and so I went and beat him up, gave him some threats. Now, we saw this also in their other friend's account, which was Billy Corgan, right? Where he did the same exact thing, where he's hitting on all these women and he's, going for minors. And I mean, he's doing all kinds of crap in this one portion. Then he goes and he hits on this one, and then he tries to paint it where they're like the perpetrator when they're not, because you see the extended story where he's trying to stay in other people's homes. And so he doesn't have to stay in his nasty little place. And he's like a grifter, right? So then he goes and he stays at this transgender's home, and he's like trying to rape the transgender. And then he plays it up like he's the victim and then makes a threat to them and then wants to get violent, right? So you see that same thing. They're all friends. All those people are friends. So they're all a bunch of sociopaths. Him, Marilyn Manson, Anthony Kiedis, the Johnny Depp, there was some other Marilyn Manson guy from the band there, and then you had Courtney Love, obviously, but she wasn't mentioned in the house party things. But oh yeah, and then Kate Moss, and so she's another hot mess. Yeah, all those people. And then my perpetrator's boss is the one that pops up because they're all pals. He pops up and he's trying to defend them all, right? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you're going to see it. And I was the early one talking about those people, not the rest of them, because I didn't, to my knowledge, I didn't meet them. I was like thinking about, I was like, to my knowledge, I didn't meet them. If I did, then I didn't know as a kid. That would be the only exception to that, but to my knowledge, didn't meet them. I say how Danny wooed Ashton to Scientology before a rape leniency plea. Um, yeah, but their stuff actually goes way back, like that conduct that was on the set, and that wasn't a Scientologist thing. Um, yeah, for the Mila thing. So I understand her portion in this. I mean, there's no excuse, there's no good excuse for it, but that's more of a grooming thing, and then it just becomes a normal thing. It's kind of like if you guys go back to the Josh Duggar thing and you listen to the girls talking, they're like in this overprotection mode, like of like don't call my brother a pedo. Da 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 da. So this is actually really common for victims because of that, because the public's talking that way, and then minimizing the conduct. So men were minimizing their conduct of, oh, I only just touched your tit. So that's not anywhere near, me being a rapist, when it's totally the same thing, because it's an action of you not respecting us as a human, and you just did something against somebody's will, which is a sexual assault, and sexual assault is serious, and sexual assault is basically a rape. Even though their definition of rape, they want to go into penetration and stuff, but then when you start getting into the male versions of things, that's not necessarily applying there, right? So you'll see how it's all effed up, but it is all generally the same thing, and it's just more of a hate crime of like, I could do whatever I want to your body, person, right? Yeah, both Sister China slammed for asking prayers after Danny's rape sentencing. Yeah, they're all a hot mess, okay? Like, that family, yeah, to come out that way, it's like, I'm going to stay with the rapist that's going to be in for 30 years, and I'm going to be shitty to everybody else. Oh, yeah, and we should pray for the perpetrator. Okay, prayers are the things that caused this to begin with, the whole, like, uh, ideology of this whole thing. And then going into Scientology is still the same, the same umbrella, the same thing where it's men on top, women on the bottom, and so they have a male head leader, and then so the what is it called? I'm just calling it a diagram. That whole pyramid thing right there is male supremacy, because it's called male supremacy generally just because the head has a male, instead of it being a balanced system where it's a male and everybody together. Like it shouldn't be this pyramid scheme, right? But when you see the pyramid like that, and it could be in reverse, like it could be a female at the top, and we would all still get it probably wouldn't look any different. This is my thinking about it, because it would be because men abuse each other, right? So you would just have females on the top, and then the females would be heavily abusing the males, but they would also heavily abuse females, kind of like what they're doing right now. But I don't know if there is really such a thing as the female version, because it's still kind of like based off of men like doing this thing. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting topic, but like you haven't seen it anywhere in the world, so it doesn't really exist. But you might see like in a household where like a female is head, and then she's abusing everybody in the family unit, right? Like we've seen that because that was my dad's mom. But technically, in that story, she was abused by males, so she's just a female with, she's a sociopath female, and then she started abusing her son, and then her son started abusing, me, and drink. You know what I mean? Like that's the actual dynamic of it, and so that's what happens under the male head. So you may see like those things. That's why I'm like, I don't know if it's like possible, but if it were, it would just be the female head, and then something like that. You don't want to see any supremacy. Like, whatever it is, because it's like that, and then it's white male, or it could be black male, and then then it can turn into a whole other thing. Like, all of it's bad, it's like the Nazis, they're the white male supremacists. You see that on the top, and that's what we're seeing in America, except for now it's quite the mix, right? Like, it's still that, but also any man, really. And so, but that's the root of it. It's just all the men, and then that. And then they all start fighting to be the head of the pyramid. Does that make any sense to people? Like, they're fighting to be the head of the pyramid. And it's almost like right now there's females, like, they're fighting to be head of the pyramid, and they're not out of the pyramid scheme. Like, they're still operating under the ideology of MS. So, like, if they become the head, they're going to abuse the same, but it would still be MS. It wouldn't be female supremacy. It would still be male supremacy. That's why I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Like, that's kind of hard. It would be female supremacy maybe if they created their own thing, and maybe it would look completely different. It's kind of one of those things because it just hasn't happened, and I don't know. It just hasn't happened. So it's kind of like thinking about it in a very abstract way of it hasn't happened yet, and would it look like that? But it would still, even with the female head, that it would still more than likely just be male supremacy at this point, because they're kind of a branch off of it because they didn't create their thoughts. They didn't create anything in America. I mean, they had to go along with it. So all their thinking about marriage and everything else, that was created by the MS people. That's why they were having a fit about gay marriage. I was like, it's ours. We're the only ones that should be able to have women as property. Trans don't fit in here. They can't populate. They are, this and that. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine women, like, I mean, they could force women. It would be the same thing, though. That's why I'm like, All right, Doc Hollywood sounds like he's going to possibly be an enabler here. I think it is natural for someone to defend a close personal friend when they are accused of behavior that is totally uncharacteristic of your experience with them. Again, I did a clip, and it is not actually uncharacteristic of their behavior. It is totally natural for someone to defend a close personal friend whom you are also a predator with them. Yes. Loyalty might compel you to come to their defense if you genuinely believe them innocent. Do they? They want to jam their tongue down Mila's child throat. So you consider that action innocent. That's how they came to this. It's a little hard and complex, I know, for some of you people. That they consider the criminal action of being a rapist okay, not innocent, but okay. And then they come to their defense. Because if you look into our past stuff, the people that did stuff have a criminal past history with children. So it's not like nobody knew that they didn't do that, right? It's a thing where they're like, oh, this criminal behavior here is totally acceptable to us, and I'm going to defend them to the end. That's what's happening. And so it says, it doesn't mean that you condone this actions. Yes, it does. Absolutely it does. But you're going on, you're acting like they're dumb and they really honestly believe he's a saint. They are accused of it. It means that your experience with the accused convinces you that they are unlikely to have committed the offense. Well, I would like to ask, like, how you would know what he did in a bedroom, to ever even be able to go there with any person, like any fucking human being. I would like to know how you would know that, or even come to that conclusion. So, no, disagree because it's not uncharacteristic. Thank you. And they knew him in his entirety, different way. Yeah, they weren't his lovers, dates, vulnerable, regular citizen women at his home. Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't know that. And in this case, Danny was convicted of the crimes, and I didn't get from Kutcher and his wife that they believed he was innocent. I thought the way they expressed themselves was that he did was no big thing. Yeah, you're probably more correct because Ashton was acting that same way, and I believe that he may possibly also have done those same crimes. Yes. And that's why that's going on. We know the Mila thing. That's why I said I go, it's not her running around raping people, but it's more like she was thrown into an environment where they were okaying them being rapists at the beginning, and then she got used to it because she's a little kid, right? And then they all became friends, because it's a very enclosed environment. So it's like grooming. It's grooming. So it's more of a grooming thing because then they later got together and he was being a predator at the start. I feel just the opposite. I knew three people over the years who turned out to be three different types of sexual predators. Awesome. They were ultimately found out and faced justices while I knew them. They concealed what they were very well. They concealed what they were very well, not just to me, but to everyone. And once they were exposed, though, I felt no obligation to them whatsoever and severed all ties with them. In fact, I was and still am angry towards them, and I felt like a victim as well, not in the same way as their actual physical victims, but a victim nonetheless, because they disgusted me and I was able to erase them from my life easily. Yeah, thank you. They sound like they were probably three sociopaths. And they were able to, I mean, I don't know what you missed. You're missing maybe the verbal the verbal language. That's why I keep saying, I go, there's a verbal language that is very difficult for these guys to hide because it has something to do with the wiring of their brain. So no matter all the masking in the world, they have an outlook on people in a way that when they're talking, just like the person that even posted the original thing here, that they have a problem. Like they're the first person's trying to argue like everybody's just totally dumb and innocent and they had no idea all this happened. That didn't happen at all. Because if you look at these cases, it's a thing where, like, even in the Harvey Weinstein thing, the guy had to be acting a pig, like, the whole time, and everybody's just like, oh, we're brushing it off. And then everybody knew, right? So they brushed it off. It wasn't a thing like, oh, we had no idea that this dude is this bad, right? And all these guys came out trying to defend themselves as to why they didn't give a shit. And so, no, there's a language there. And also, people were saying the guy's doing this, but it wasn't to the level that they gave a shit about because they're all acting this way. So, that's the thing about it. It's not, oh my God, this person was a completely different human and there was no flags. There's always flags. That's what I'm saying. I go, but if you're okaying what is the flag, then you're not going to see the flag. It's not as randomly just calling everybody a socio. It may sound like it, but there's a lot. Unfortunately, there's a lot because of the abuses going on, but there's a language. And if it's two guys sitting there going, okay, so here's a 14-year-old, and they're looking at each other, they're like, you know what, I'm gonna bet you, dude, that you're gonna stick your tongue down her throat. That's a rapist. I like, what the fuck, so they're doing this thing because it's something against the kid's will, and they're like, we're gonna do something sexual to her, and so we're gonna bet, like, she's an object, we don't need to consult with her, we're just gonna do something criminal to her, and we're just gonna do it, right? So they're having this conversation back and forth. So that's the flags. I mean, the flags are right there, but they're going back and forth. And this is the general population that would talk about that and go, oh, that's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, you know. So it's that. It's totally that. Hmm. So knowing that, it would be consistent that it would mean that Ashton is a rapist too. You can come to that conclusion because they're having this conversation, and he's trying to play pretend like, isn't this kind of illegal? And then he like does that kind of crap, right? And then you don't find it odd that he runs over an older woman. Um, Now, mind you, she has a early childhood thing, so she's kind of susceptible to this kind of behavior in a way, like where she wouldn't like put her foot down, you know, and be like, "Get the fuck out of here, dude." But still, kind of, you know, maybe used to that type of abuse, and they didn't have a lot of conversations on that topic. And then she got a drinking problem, right? And then he comes in, and it's like he's taking advantage of the situation because he can. I don't know what his MO was, because it may have been like he had a child crush on her or something. That could be that. And then he saw some opportunity there. He's like, wow, I got this opportunity. I'm just going to go on this high, you know. It's like that taboo thing for him. So it'd be a high in the sense that, you know, it's taboo just generally, right? Because I know people were talking about that relationship, and so that's why I said it's an interesting dynamic to read about, because you know you could have different thoughts about those things, but the dynamic is a little different than what I was thinking about it, a little, but kind of somewhere on the lines of that. And men have this problem typically doing that stuff, but somehow it gets passed off that it's okay for men, right? Um, some of the reasons may not be totally healthy. It just depends. Like, it depends. Like, you have to kind of know the dynamic there. But regardless, in that relationship, it was absolute chaos. You see, like they like chaos. Like the ASPD likes the chaos. They need the chaos. They need the highs. They need the fucking craziness, right? So then it's like, okay, this relationship isn't enough for me. So can we add some people into it? It's like, this is a person that literally does not care about you. Like, literally. But women don't pick it up. They're too busy, like, because they're kind of indoctrinated into making them happy. So she's bending over going, okay, we'll do this, I guess, because it was kind of worded that way. So it didn't sound like something that it was her idea. And it would be totally different if they're both like, dude, you know what? We should get a third wheel in here together. You know, then, you know, what are you going to say about it? Like, that's just their deal together. But it sounded like a thing where he's like, hey, you know, do you mind if I get another girl up in here? You know, and then maybe, I don't know how he verbalized it. But yeah, so, but you can already tell his character before that. So you can get an idea of like who initiated that crap. And so then he does that, and it's not enough, right? So then you see him doing other crap like cheating on her, right? He needs to do these things, these highs, because he's never happy. He can't be he has no attachment to her. She's just an object, and it's kind of like it was never love, okay? That's what I'm just saying. So it was like a thing where it's like, this sounds like a good idea to do today. This is exciting and blah, blah, blah. And so he jumps into it, runs everybody over. It's really crazy how they do this. And then they zoom off and they leave this giant mess. You'll see this thing. They'll leave this giant pile of shit. And then they totally get away with it. And it's so on the edge of being criminal, but they don't get in trouble, right? And then now she was back with the drinking problem. Again, it's her choice to drink, but that literally was kind of a coercive thing there. And so it's on the line of that criminality there. It's just like pushing the you know, the thing. And so, and then she could have died. I mean, how horrible. Like, I can't, like I was saying, I couldn't get over that story. I was like, what the hell? So then after that, then he goes, and I guess he gets with Mila, but it's like a child victim. Like, he goes back to somebody that the earlier thing, and she's susceptible to it too, right? So it's just like, what? Because who else is gonna put up with this shit? That's what I'm saying. Like, they know who to go for, and they're like needy in the way that they need a woman to abuse, and they need like somebody to abuse, basically. And then what they'll do is they may stay in it for a while, depending on what's. I mean, who those? I would not date that guy, knowingly, but most healthy individuals would not put up with that shit. So for him, it could be a thing about, oh, I got the best thing out here, and it's just because she happens to be his groomed child, from like a long time ago. But outside that, it would be hard for him to have a good relationship with anybody healthy. Like, I would have booted him right away. People think I'm the one with the problem. It's like, no, I cannot, I will not. I try to get rid of like bad things, like, instead of wasting my time, like, through a long period of time, dealing with that shit. Because I'm not going to be abused. And some of those people are the same type that later down the line may go and commit a family side or cheat on me or do these horrible things. And I don't want to, I'm not going to set myself up for that shit. Because I could see the signs early on. It's just back in the day when I was a lot younger, I was so forgiving. Like, not that I even forgave the guy for doing that, but it was sort of like I should learn to work it out. I don't know. There was a weird thing with me in the earliest portions of things, and no, like I didn't want to hurt somebody's feelings by dumping them or something. I don't know. It was a hard thing to do, and I never cheated on anybody. So before I would even get into another relationship, the other one had to end. Like, that's not. And I could have easily done that because my other boyfriend was back home, and no, I mean, it would have been easy to do that, but I wouldn't do that. So no, so this other person, anyway, predator. I was like, when you look at the whole story, but no, they didn't like me at all. Like, when you look at the story, it's just like they didn't like me. They made up a story that I tried to kill him with water. I've made the story just sound ridiculous, more ridiculous than it probably is, but no, they were just over exaggerating. They were over exaggerating, and it wasn't even me, and there was nothing wrong with it. It was just funny because I don't know, it was just funny at the time, but nobody was doing anything. So, but it was like me, like, trying to go, how to, I should break up with them, but, I don't know. And I think I was crying more because, like, I didn't break up with him first. You know what I mean? It was more like that because I didn't really care because the guy didn't care about me. It was sort of like that. It was just like, oh, is this the thing to do? And then I was so young, though. It's so stupid. You go through those things. I don't know. Today, anybody that treated me like that, like, right away, I would have told him off, and then he's gonna be gone. Ashton wouldn't last 2 seconds. Like, I would be on a date, and the guy would be like, I don't really think alcoholism is a real thing. Because I would look at it like, okay, either you're a major gaslighter, you're a dumbass, or you're a major alcoholic, and that's your excuse to yourself as to why you're a big drinker. You know what I mean? Like, one of those three things. Dumb, though, right away. Such a turnoff, man. Little ignorance here and there is one thing, but on the verge of, like, a disability, no. He is on the verge of a disability. But he's also purely evil. Like, it's both those things. Oh yeah, and Ariana Grande is like crying about her lip injections. I've been talking about all that stuff. It's easy to fall into, you guys. It's not like I don't understand it, but mostly if you have like body dysmorphia, and also, yeah, trying to kind of like hide yourself. Yeah, that was an interesting thing. Um, like it's almost like I'm gonna be a more likable person if I look a certain way, and then, but what if like so then you only attract like people that like you only if you look that way, and then then what happens when you no longer look like that? You could attract some piece of shit that's just like, you know, they go after that and then they get rid of you. Like it's like what the hell? Like you kind of want them to like you, and even in your worst. And uh as far as that goes, because everybody has their ups and downs, but yeah, but then also yourself. So it's like what it yeah, I don't know, like there's this weird thing, like I'll have, I don't know how to explain it, like these like weird thoughts of like, or dreams, like these dreams where it's not my face, like well, who the hell am I, like you start doing this thing because you're not being your authentic self, and like why present something that's not you out there when that's the thing that they're gonna go after, and then that's not really you, and then it becomes a really unhealthy thing. And those people, I wouldn't want to attract those people. Like there's a thing about it, and it's not to say to not like try to look your best, like it's not that, it's like where they're completely like trying to rearrange themselves in a way to where it's not even them anymore. And I know people will argue the thing about, whatever makes you happy, but it's like why I mean that shouldn't be the thing that makes you happy, and I don't think it ever does anyway when you talk to these people. Um yeah, and then it's like when does it end? But the lip thing was a big one. That's what I was talking about. I was like one day I was like online, and it was just like a few minutes, and I was like, whoa, dude, that shit like fucked with my head. And luckily, it's like I have no desire to go get that done, but it was just like, and if I did, whatever, but I know I would look hella weird. But no, like it happens so quickly. I don't think people realize it. Like if you're not like aware of it, like you could be like, oh my God, yeah, I totally need it. I look fucking weird. Like, why are my lips all little like that? And this thing, and it's like if you're aware of it, then you just kind of brush it off, and then it goes away after a while, as long as you're not looking at every single day like everybody having that, and even now, like I mean there's a lot of people, but not as much as before, but still of this model, she's like, I'll date anybody that wants to take me to dinner. Dinners are bad dates, man. You gotta go do something. You gotta do something competitive with that son of a bitch. I was like, no, anyway, so it's like, I would take her to McDonald's only if I felt like it. This sounds like the guy that was totally went violent. Like, one guy, like, asked me one day who I would never date in a million years, came into my job, and then he was like a customer, and he was all talking to me, and he's like, I would like to take you to McDonald's. And I thought they were joking, because, like, okay, if you're like literally trying to make an impression, like it doesn't even have to be like a really expensive place, but like who would say that? Like this guy here is saying it as a being a jerk, but maybe it's the same guy, right? It could be. He's like, I'll take you to McDonald's, and I go, ha ha ha. I just started laughing. I was like, ha ha, because we can't date him anyway. But I was like, ha ha, and nor would I want to. And then he's like, then the conversation turned into, what's wrong with McDonald's? There's nothing fucking wrong with McDonald's. Yep. Yep. I was like, yeah, that would end up in a murder, I'm sure. So, yeah, so maybe Eddie's that guy. And he got 10 thumbs up, so I don't know, maybe one of the 10. Problem is, she is a smart, principled woman in a very shallow business. Yep. So that's who she ends up meeting. Yeah. That's probably the best way to explain that. It's like, these guys are horrible. Can we meet some other like people that are human out here? I just like it's down to earth. It's really that. How's it desperate? It's just like, you can take me to dinner. Like nothing's happening at dinner, dude. Like I said, dinner's all bullshit. It's like, what did I learn from these people? Oh, they might kidnap me to an ATM and not eat at all. So somebody else said I'll take her to McDonald's. Yeah, that must be that statement was said in the 90s and it was meant seriously and then they get violent when you laugh at it. Of course, here's another gaslighter. She definitely needs a lot of therapy. There's something wrong with her. There just has to be a gaslighter in the comment. How weird is that? Like I keep finding the single gaslighter. Sometimes just doing the regular rounds of dating, like just going to a dinner, is like, okay, I know what I don't want. It's like that was kind of the thing for a little bit. It was like, it's nothing serious. Like you just go out to dinner and it's like, ew, no, 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 and never, and this guy's a predator, and no, no, and no, and then 3 dates in, no, hell, no, no, no chemistry, nothing, nothing, dull, asshole, just wants sex. This dude, that dude, not very smart, total liar, a serial killer, serial killer, serial killer, another serial killer. It's not me, it's them. I don't know what's wrong with my ad. I'm just like, I'm looking for some dark, handsome man that's like, you into horror movies. I'm looking for my Norman Bates, and I can't figure out why, like actual serial killers are showing up on my date. Yeah, then finally it's like, oh, I like this one. Oh, he fucking hates me.